All right, back here on SportsLine, we are talking Trevecca Nazarene Athletics tonight. Mark Elliott, athletic director, our guest, baseball coach Ryan Schmalz here as well. A huge season for the baseball team as they win another GMAC title in the regular season. They also go on and win the conference tournament title 19-2 over the weekend against Ohio Valley. They able to double up, get the sweep there, and then build really for the future as they're trying to create really a dominant program and have stuff just build off of what they did this year. And they're getting set for next year. We're going to bring these guys in here in just a moment once we get our director back in the studio. But really, for both of you guys, Ryan, what did it mean this year with this team, based off of what you've done the last couple of years, to come out and get the sweep in the conference and really kind of establish the power that you guys are? Yeah,
I think it was harder this year. The first 2 years we won a regular season championship, a tournament championship, and staying on top was definitely more difficult than getting to the top. We kind of had a target on our back all year, we felt like, and you can't sneak up on anybody when you're carrying that that championship label, and you're going to get the best shot from everybody you play. So it was definitely a challenging year for us, and I'm glad the way our players stepped up and rose to the occasion and brought their best every day.
Talk about some of the guys who really carried the way for you this year and what was such a banner year.
Well, it starts on the mound, I think. We had a senior pitcher named Michael Purcell. He's a transfer from Jackson State Community College, and he was a senior this year. Kind of an emotional leader for us and really dominated on the mound. He was the pitcher of the year in the conference. He did a terrific job for us. Every time we gave him the ball, he dominated this year, and he's going to be a Marine. He's kind of got that type of mentality, just a really tough kid. A coach's dream, really. Another guy that stands out is third baseman Hunter Newman. He was the offensive player of the year in the conference. 18 home runs, 20-something doubles. He's a junior this year, and he really carried us offensively in just about every category. And having a presence like that in the middle of the lineup to strike fear in the opposing team really makes a difference. And he did a terrific job for us all year.
When you talk about the effort last weekend in the conference tournaments, it seems like the pitching was there, as you talked about, but also the bats. To score that many runs in the championship game, that's got to be a coach's dream.
Well, it wasn't a championship game. Funny enough, we didn't. We won a few games before that, but we hadn't played exceptionally well offensively in the tournament up to that game. So before that game started, I was a little bit nervous. In a tournament setting, you never know what's going to happen. But from the very first hitter of the game, we really exploded offensively, and it was good to see. It took a little pressure off in that championship game. You weren't on pins and needles the whole time, and you kind of sit back and enjoy it really after that first inning.
I want to bring Mark back in here. Ryan went over 100 wins this year. What does that say about a guy still young in what he's doing there, but to be at that milestone already?
He's a mere babe. No, he's a young coach with experience and yet maturity is what we would really look for that kind of program. It's an achievement, but that's not the goal for Ryan. I love it for him that he gets 100 wins, but that's not his goal. He has so much more invested in the young men. That's what makes him really good. And so the 100 wins, they did a nice job with him saying it was the 100th win and stuff like that, but I got a feeling that didn't mean a whole lot to Ryan necessarily, because his goals are more lofty.
Ryan, what are some of those goals that you have for the program moving forward now after 3 consecutive GMAC titles?
Yeah, the vision for the program, and I told this to Mark in the interview process going back 3 years ago, that my goal is to build one of the premier Division II baseball programs in the entire country, not just in the GMAC, not just in the Midwest region, but in the entire country. That may be a bold goal or a lofty goal, but we don't back down from that at all. We measure ourselves against the premier programs in the entire country, and we try to schedule some of those people on our schedule year to year. We're not there yet, but we recruit that way. We try to develop our guys that way, and that's definitely the goal.
It seems like the mid-state region is just a bastion of all this great baseball talent and great baseball programs. We saw last year Vanderbilt win the College World Series, Cumberland wins a national championship. The job you guys are doing, for both of you, what do you think makes this area so rich in, I guess, talent for one, but just a great place to build a college baseball program?
You want to take a stab at that?
I'll go first. It's a cultural thing. Some areas of the country are known for basketball, some for football. I think the mid-state in Tennessee it goes back years and years of terrific high school programs, summer programs. From these kids as they're growing up from a very young age, they get involved in these programs and they just keep pushing each other and building off of that. What Vanderbilt's been able to do, what Cumberland's been able to do, and those are just some of the ones that got some recognition. But there's some terrific junior colleges in the area. There's some terrific, Belmont does a great job, Lipscomb does a great job. Some of the time we just hear about Vanderbilt, but there's terrific college and amateur baseball, high school baseball in this area is outstanding. And with us now having the NCAA label, that really helps us in the recruiting process also.
A couple of names. Bill Stewart with the Shootiques many, many, many years ago. Ben Tyree will remember. The Babe Ruth program in the mid-state was just phenomenal. I grew up in East Tennessee, and struck fear in us was that Shootiques name. Larry Schmitto, who was at Vanderbilt and started the Sounds, and these are guys that had vision for baseball way back when, and those foundations led the way for people, and now you've got second and third generations of people that are coming through that really love baseball, and it's a baseball culture. I might say this: Tennessee is probably not far north enough to have great basketball. It's probably not far south enough to have great football, but it's right on that belt that can play really good baseball, and that seems to be where a lot of the talent has migrated to.
Certainly has. We're talking with Trevecca Athletic Director Mark Elliott, also baseball coach Ryan Schmalz. Ryan, I got to bring it up because he brought it up last segment. The guarantee for next year that you brought up on Sunday nights. How much of that was, I guess, maybe easing some of the pains of not being that seventh team, as Mark talked about in the last segment? How much of it is just the confidence of where your program is now that next year will be different?
Well, to be honest, I didn't expect that statement to be brought up on TV. To be honest with you, somebody in the room let that out, but I don't mind. I don't back down from that at all. Our players and our program know our goal. We make no bones about it. We want to be one of the best baseball programs around. Our goal is to not only get in a regional, but we want to host it in Nashville. I think. The other teams in our region will love to come to Nashville. It's a great city. It's a great place to host a regional tournament like that. And, our goal is definitely to win it and play for a Division II World Series. So, it's a guarantee. I don't know how I feel about using that word, but, I probably got caught up in the moment a little bit after we found out we weren't going to make the field, 48 in the tournament. So.
I asked Mark this in the last segment, but as the coach of those guys, how difficult was that moment? Because I had to imagine that group of guys felt pretty good about their chances going into that show on Sunday.
Well, we did. I mean, we knew that we had more wins than a number of teams in our region that made the tournament. And we going in, I kind of expected, honestly, to hear one way or another, through somebody on the committee or somehow get word if we were in or not, but I had no idea. We're all in a room watching the selection show, and we see the teams go by and our name doesn't come up, and it was like getting punched in the gut. It just totally took the air out of the room, and our guys were really excited going in, and not seeing your name up there just completely crushed us. I mean, there's a lot of emotion in there. Those seniors, they hadn't known if they're playing their last game or not, so they realized they're never going to put on a baseball uniform again, and that's hard. That's a hard moment, and I was at a loss for words getting up in front of those guys. I didn't know what to say and how to console them. Looking to the future is really the only thing we can do.
What was the message obviously the guarantee. But what was the message
Yeah.
in terms of this summer? Because I imagine a lot of those guys are playing summer ball somewhere and coming back to next year as a better team.
Well, the message, first of all, was, I felt like we were faced with a choice. We can feel sorry for ourselves, or we can remember the good things. The times you spend on the bus and the hotels and the locker room with the players, the memories you share, the relationships you build. That's what these guys are going to remember 10 years from now is the relationships and the people. And I definitely wanted to get that message across. But looking to the future, this is going to be something that motivates these guys. We'd never been through this process before. A selection committee, a selection show. Nobody really knew, what it was going to take to get in there. Now that we tasted it, we were in that room. We didn't see our name called. It's going to be a motivating factor for us moving forward. And having exit meetings with our players over the last couple days, every single one of those guys echoed that, how it's going to be a motivating factor for them as they go, in the weight room over the summer and in various summer leagues.
I'm not sure which one of you guys wants to take this, but I heard that perhaps one of the factors was the fact that based off of weather, you guys ended up not having very many road games this year because there were, I think it was 13 occasions where your opponent's field wasn't playable. And you guys had a field that was playable, and so you played the games at home at Trevecca, and you won the vast majority of those, but because they're home games, whether it goes into NCAA, RPI, or whatever, you don't get quite as much credit for that. And so it perhaps appeared that you weren't a very road-tested team. I guess, Ryan, to you, how much did that affect, do you think, your candidacy for a bid?
It definitely affected it. When the people on the selection committee get the breakdown of, wins and losses, regional opponents, home record, road record, and we don't have very many road games to show, it definitely affects it. You just get more points for playing games on the road and winning those games. It was a horrible winter, in spring for spring sports all over the country. And fortunately enough, we could get our field ready to play, and we moved a couple weekend series to our field because, where we were going to go, they just simply couldn't play. And at the time, I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. And I don't know if that was the only thing that kept us off of playing in a regional or not, but those 13 games definitely had an impact. How many of those would we have won on the road? I don't know. I like to think a lot of those. But it definitely played a huge role in that.
Mark, that's got to be a weird double-edged sword as athletic director. As one, it's got to be kind of a source of pride that during a terrible winter, you guys had a field that was playable pretty much every day to get out there and go, and you could get those games in for your student athletes. But at the same time, because you could, it maybe burned you at the end of the day.
Honestly, I think, Ryan, we can say we didn't realize that was going to be a problem at the end of the season. We look back on it now, we saw it. We were just trying to get the games in, and we call it the apocalypse of the spring. Was just the weather was just so bad in so many regions of the country, ours as well, and yet our guys were able to get the field ready, and we're on a natural grass field, and we spend a lot of time, take a lot of pride in that field. The baseball team does a fantastic job. Which I might add, our guys do the field, and we have 2 assistant coaches who manage that, but our guys do the field. Our softball team does the field. We don't have field crews. It's the field crew are the guys, right? But they got the field ready because they wanted to play, and so we didn't realize that was going to hurt us, not until afterwards.
That's a very good point Mark just brought up. I know that is the case with a lot of college baseball programs, even some Division I programs where the guys, they're in charge of the tarp, they're in charge of mowing the grass at times. The facility that you have over there for a Division II program and the buy-in that you have from your players to do all those things, how much is a source of that for pride for you? And when you go out and recruit, how much of an advantage is that for you when you try to bring some of these guys in?
Well, touch on recruiting first. I mean, whenever we bring a recruit on campus, that's the first stop. We say, hey, meet us at the baseball field, because we take pride in it. We want to show that off. It's a terrific playing surface. We got new facilities around the baseball field, popping up, and we do take a lot of pride in it. And our guys, they have a job to take care of on the field, and they take pride in that. When opposing teams come in and play, they see the time and effort we put into the field getting it ready, and the way it looks, and it's something we take a lot of pride in, and I think that's the way it is with a lot of baseball coaches. It's they want the grass right, they want everything to be just so, and we're no different than anybody else with regard to that.
I want to ask a big picture question. This is something I've had several conversations with Tim Corbin at Vanderbilt and other coaches. I'm originally a Midwest guy, so a lot of coaches up there I know are on my side here. But you talk about the horrible winter. We're not that far north. There's certainly places that are farther north and had worse winters. Should college baseball, Division I, Division II, every division, should the NCAA really look at a start date later? Would we be better off if these? I mean, your season's done. It's mid-May. I mean, we got a lot more really good baseball weather out there in front of us. Should we be having serious conversations about that?
Talk about it from the baseball
You'll get two
perspective.
different answers probably. I think you talk to any baseball coach, we're all for it. I mean, nobody wants to be out there playing when it's 35 degrees in February. I mean, it's miserable, but that's the schedule they give us, and that's what we have to make the most of it. We would love to push the season back, but that opens up another can of worms. I mean, there's a cost involved with that. After school's out, if you still play baseball for another month, I mean, you got to pay for housing those kids, feeding those kids, and it's it's something that the universities would have to buy into for us to play in better weather, and unfortunately. They haven't done that, nationwide, and the southern schools see it as an advantage to the northern schools. The southern schools don't want to change anything because they know they can get out on the field sooner, and the northern schools do. But it's definitely a financial burden.
But Mark, I'm going to let you give me the side of why it's hard to do, maybe feasibility. But shouldn't a big part of this be about what's best for the student athletes and giving every student athlete, northern school or southern school, the best opportunity to play in the best weather, to have the best product on the field?
Absolutely. I mentioned C.M. Newton earlier as our consultant that led us into the Division II process. He looked at me and he pointed his finger at me back in the beginning when I was first hired. He said, "You and your colleagues are the generation of athletic directors that are going to change this." And he felt like the change that was necessary was that football's in the fall, basketball doesn't start till December, baseball is a summer sport, and that's going to take a lot of work and a lot of change. And people, again, as I said earlier, they're fearful of the change and they don't want to make those kinds of changes. But quite honestly, the Super Bowl is in February. They started playing baseball in February, and somehow there's supposed to be a basketball season in between football and baseball, and so it's just getting squeezed. Football is kind of king, certainly around here and in many parts of the country, but we've pushed that football season back so far that the home attendance in basketball is horrible now all over the country because of that. Nobody pays attention to the conference anymore because it's all about the March Madness NCAA tournament. Well, and about that time is when baseball starts. We actually had better weather in January for practice than we did February and March for games. We really did.
Yeah.
And so it's not going to be the only year that this ever happens. This was a particularly odd year weather-wise.
Well,
but
last year was terrible too.
It's going to continue to happen.
Right. And the farther north you get, the worse it gets. I understand there's a cost. If you have the kids there on campus during the summer, obviously you're paying for housing that maybe you weren't paying before. But feasibly, even at the Division II level, what would it be, to keep baseball, softball players on campus for the summer, have them in summer classes or whatever the case may be, but maybe you have a little bit longer season, maybe you get a few more people out there to the games, things like that. Can it balance itself out, or is that too much to ask at the any division level at this point?
I'd like to try it. At Trevecca, there are not enough summer courses that are offered every semester, right? That's part of it. Your entire student body is gone, so you have no student involvement other than the student athletes. So it presents more challenges. I mean, even things like the dorms. That's when they remodel dorms. Okay, we can get around that. The cafeteria stuff is done differently during the summer because that's just the way it is. Now, a lot of the larger schools, that's a year-round process, but in smaller schools, it's not. So it would require a distinct cultural change and I don't think that everybody's ready to do that.
Let's sneak in one call here before a break. William, good evening. You're on with the guys.
How are you?
Doing well.
Okay, I've got a question for a coach. Do you get more satisfaction out of making an average or good or a great player great?
That's a great question. You know, I don't know where I get the most satisfaction. I get satisfaction of seeing players reach their maximum potential. You know, seeing them develop over time. When you see a freshman come in and they kind of have that deer in headlights look a little bit about them, you see them develop over that year and grow and adapt. And by the time they're a senior, you know, they walk down the line on senior day and you see the finished product over that 4-year process. That's incredibly rewarding, and not just as a player but as a person. You know, the emotional maturity that you go through, and in those years between 18 and 22 years old, you see a lot of personal development, and a coach has a unique connection with the player. That's where I take the most pride and get the most satisfaction, William, is seeing the personal development off the field. You know, as a player, you know, we work so hard and spend so many hours out there that just kind of happens, but you know, the personal development that a player goes through and the relationship that you have as a coach is, you know, is very unique, and it's extremely rewarding, and it's what wakes me up every day.
We've got to get to a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk Trevecca softball right after this. But Ryan, congratulations on a great season. Best of luck on that guarantee. We'll talk to you next year after you make good on it.
All
okay?
right. Thanks a lot for having us.
We appreciate it, Mark. Thanks for stopping by once again.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back. Softball talk on the way next.